All right, so unless you've been living under a rock this week, you have seen the drama that has been playing out around Sam Altman with OpenAI and his CFO and all kinds of crazy stuff going on. This has been one heck of a week. If you're following any AI news or any of the big startups out here, because as we all know, we are definitely in a bubble, and I think everybody knows that, but then everybody's talking about like, what is a bubble and what does that mean and what happens if the bubble pops and all that. So I think everybody's universally now said, yes, we're in a bubble. But what does that mean? So we're going to dive into some of this today and some of the crazy drama that's been unwinding this week. Let's break this down and go through it for you today. All right, so it's been kind of a crazy week, and I'm going to switch my screen over here for you because one of the things that's been pretty nuts is everybody's talking about like, are we in a bubble? Now, this was an email that I get from the A16Z. So if you don't know who A16Z is, it's Andreessen Horowitz, which is one of the largest VC and PE firms out there, right? So two folks from A16Z are having a conversation here. And the big topic here is AI a bubble, right? Now, this actually happened, last week, but I wanted to make sure I pick this up to kind of start this conversation this week because it's going to go to show you how crazy this week has been. So what we have here is that we say, hey, like, look, so we have about $1 trillion worth of data centers over the past 3 years. We've already built out more data center capacity in the adjusted inflation adjustment dollars than the entire U.S. interstate highway system, which took 40 years, and plan that to add $3 to $4 trillion more over the next 5 years. So OpenAI alone, I believe, is committed to more than $1 trillion of deals set up. All these big numbers scare people, and they call it a bubble. So he says, are we in a bubble? And this one, Gavin Baker here says, look, I believe we're not in a bubble. And this is obviously an interesting take because he's like, hey, if you were a tech investor during 2000 bubble, you know what a bubble was, because Cisco peaked at 150 to 180 times trailing earnings. NVIDIA is more like 40 times earnings right now. So just to put that in perspective, when we start talking about a bubble, it's going to talk about the valuations of the companies based off their earnings. Now, the thing about it is he neatly dances around what OpenAI's valuation is right now, because OpenAI's valuation is like some crazy number, but it's definitely not as low as 40% or 40 times. So he's like, if you're around 20, you know that you'll know what it was. Dark fiber was literally fiber that was laid in the ground but not lit up. Fiber is useless into optic switches and routers. So he said we laid 200,000 miles of dark fiber. So he said at the peak of the bubble, 90% of the fiber that had been laid in America was dark. Okay, so meaning that's what he's defining as a bubble. And he says, contrast that with today, there's no dark GPUs. Now, I found that to be a really interesting point because right now, all the GPUs are being used. Now, the thing I'm going to argue here about this is just because they're being used doesn't necessarily mean they're being used to make money. That's one of the big problems we have here. Now, he goes on and they talk about a lot of other numbers here. He talks about, Google and Google's bigger than OpenAI, Anthropic, a lot of different things. And they go through and we're going to kind of touch on some of those here today. But then we dive into this unwinding. And I talked a little about this, so make sure you check out the previous podcast on this because I talked a lot about this. But Sam Altman goes nuts here and goes off attacking. I don't know why he suddenly decided to pick a fight with Elon. There's a lot of people I'm going to pick a fight with. Elon Musk, whether you love him or hate him, is probably not in that list for me. But he says tail in 3 acts. He says, hey, he reserved a Roadster. He says he tried to get a refund for his Roadster after 7 years of not getting the product, and the email bounced. So he was trying to make fun of Tesla for that. And Elon replies and says, you stole a nonprofit. And, and then this spirals down because then Elon also responds, says, you forget to mention Act 4, where the issue was fixed and you received a full refund within 24 hours, but that's your nature. Now, they go back and forth and they're sparring quite a bit. Now, shortly after that, Sam Altman goes, and again, I covered all this on the previous one, so I'm not going to go super in depth here, but I just got to give a little bit of context. Sam Altman goes on to a podcast with Satya Nadella, and he gets questioned about why it is that OpenAI has committed to $1.4 trillion of spend with only earnings of $13 billion. Now, Altman says OpenAI's revenue is growing steeply and throws out some crazy numbers like they're going to be at $100 billion by next year, which is, or 2027 or some ridiculous numbers that everybody in the world knows is total crap. And then says revenue is growing steeply and the company expects strong demands across its consumer and enterprise business. Now, again, as I countered before, what we're seeing is actually a decline in OpenAI usage. So like strong demand and increasing revenue is definitely not what they're seeing. Now, the OpenAI CFO after goes on to a public podcast then and starts talking and says, hey, we would like this, that we would support the federal backstop for our chip investment. And says the company would support federal measures to make it easier to finance sizable investments in AI chips. So she spoke at the Wall Street Journal's Tech Live event in California. And she goes on to say that, hey, like, we would love it if the federal government would come and like back our loans because, we're a little worried that they might fail. She didn't say the last part, but it's like definitely implied. Anybody who's saying that they would love to have the government back them. So it's not like this is some made up thing or taken out of context. Because even and so after this thing, they went into damage control. Because you can even see like Meet Kevin says, hey, now I know why Sam Altman needed his Roadster money back. Poor bloke is out of money, right? And so OpenAI is requesting the government guarantee finance chips for deals. What the heck? Prearranged bailouts? What is going on? So he's even retweeting to his own tweet here. Now, I want to go through this one because this is then somebody else's summary of what OpenAI CFO Sarah Fryer's version of the company's she laid out today at Wall Street Journal Tech Conference. Essentially, she articulated a financial path for OpenAI to make sense despite all the insane numbers. They need a huge amount of money to stay on the cutting edge. Compute grew 20 times in 2 years, and to do that again will take $1 trillion at current compute costs. To pay for that, they have revenue, they have VC investment, but thirdly, they need financial innovation on financing their chips. That means deals like the AMD one, where they essentially get a sweetheart deal because the proximity to OpenAI boosts AMD's stock price and business prospects. They also would like federal guarantees on the loans, so PE and banks are more comfortable giving more. Remember, these chips have life, right? They're not like data centers. Most data centers that have gotten built out over the last 20 years have anywhere from 5 to 7 years or 7 to 10 years of life. These chips have at most 5 years of life at most. Most of them are obsolete after 3. So the complex part is that they don't know how long the chip life cycle is. If it's 2 years, it's hard to finance. If it's 7 years, it's easier. OpenAI will always need the best chips available to maintain their edge. And at the same time, they're currently using 6 to 7 year old chips because their compute demand is super high. They're using everything they've got. Additionally, because they're so busy building cat videos for Sora, right? Additionally, they will do creative commercial deals. They're not just going to sell access to pharma companies on a per token basis. They're going to demand a rev share of the profit that pharma companies bring in from developing drugs using ChatGPT. Well, newsflash, pharma companies aren't going to use ChatGPT to build drugs. Like, that's not going to happen. It's not going to be inventive. Generative AI will never invent new drugs. That's not what's going to happen. This applies to commercial commerce too. They want to take a cut of both the discovery and the transaction when someone searches for a product using ChatGPT. This is already happening with Walmart, Etsy, Shopify, etc. Now, all in all, she is articulating the big vision where OpenAI kind of becomes the most important company in the world and uses that apparent huge valuation IP, valuable IP they have that everyone else wants in order to strike a bunch of unorthodox commercial arrangements that allow them to spend hundreds of billions of dollars a year and still make sense as a company. So that's the whole point. They don't make sense as a company. It doesn't make sense because Anthropic is catching them in corporate. Gemini is hot on their heels, as we're going to see. And so there's a ton of stuff that doesn't make sense. And that's what everyone's starting to try to do. And this is when we get to the definition of bubble. Jason from All In Podcast says, if OpenAI were to fail, it would have zero impact on the future of AI. Zero. They have dozens of viable competitors and 10 folks who would buy the assets. Let it rise or fall based on merit. Totally agree. Could not agree more. In fact, if you've listened to me at all on this channel, you'd know not to use OpenAI at all. Next, I want to go into this because I think this is super important and something I definitely want to spend a few minutes on. He says, just a fair warning to founders. Like Facebook and Microsoft, I predict OpenAI will study their platform partners and compete with many of them in the coming years. This isn't abnormal, mind you. Microsoft built Windows, then destroyed their top partners, Lotus 123 and WordPerfect with Excel and Word. You want another example of this? Go look at Intel. Microsoft partnered with Intel for years and years and years, and then as soon as it didn't meet their needs, quietly moved on to ARM-based processors. I'm running my main laptop that has an ARM-based processor, right? Stand up an open source LLM or use pure platform plays who don't have to hit $200 billion in revenue to break even in their $1.4 trillion builds out. So this is again him playing, him teasing against the fact that these numbers don't make sense. even if they were to hit 200 billion, and remember that's 10 times the revenue they have right now, 10 times, not like it's 10 times the revenue. So this is an order of multitude different than what they are doing right now to even begin to talk about this, and that's crazy. Every dollar you spend on OpenAI and every job you send to their API might create the demise of your business. Let me highlight this and repeat this again. Every dollar you spend with OpenAI and every job you send to their API might create the demise of your business. Look, guys, I'm just reading this, but this is what I've been saying here on the channel for a long time. This is part of the reason why you don't use OpenAI. Now, Gemini is hot on their heels. And this is why. It's because this was a funny little thing. I saw this. It says Google Gemini's deep research can look into your emails, drives, and chats. Your Gmail, Drive, chat can serve as info sources for Gemini's AI-generated reports. At very first, I read this and I thought, oh crap, that's totally scary. And then I stopped for a second and thought, I've been using Gmail for, what, 23 years? I've used Google Drive since it came out. I use Google Search as my primary search. If I don't think Google's had all of my data for over 20 years, then I'm just laughing at myself. So the funny thing here is this is why I predict that Google will win, because they already have all of this. And if you don't think that they are using it to feed their robots, they've been using it to feed their robots for decades. This has been their play. I listened to a talk, the CTO at the time for Google came to ASU when I was going to college there in 2004. And he told me about the fact of said, hey, I want you to think of every single search you've ever done, every email you've ever sent, every chat you've ever sent. This was like 2004 or 2005. He said, now I want you to think about all that. I have all that data. And he told us this. He told us, the students, this to our faces in 2004. Fast forward 20 years. If you don't think Google's had this the whole time, you're it's laughable. And they are putting it to use. 100% they are. And this is why I think Google will win. Now, of course, OpenAI goes into total panic mode and is trying to run everything back as much as they can. OpenAI CFO Sarah Friar says company isn't seeking government backstop. She clarifies her previous comments. She had to go hit the news waves quick. She says, and of course, Sam Altman can't fire her because one, that would even worse, and two, because he doesn't have all that many friends left anyway. So anyone who's willing to be the CFO for Scam Altman at this point is like, I don't know, glutton for punishment. But OpenAI CFO Sarah Friar said in a LinkedIn post that the company is not seeking a government backstop for its infrastructure commitments. Friar's post clarifies comments she made on the stage at the Wall Street Journal's live tech event. OpenAI has linked to more than $1 trillion of infrastructure deals in recent months to try to build out infrastructure. And she goes on to try to say, hey, we're not actually seeking government backstop. I got to do this. But the funny thing is her rollback actually just made it worse. It kind of doubled down. I used the words backstop and it muddied the point. As the full clip of my answer shows, I was making the point that America's strength and tech. Basically, she comes back and kind of doubles down and says, well, no, this is why America needs to do this, because we need to win. We as America. But what she's missing is we as America does not equate to OpenAI winning. And so this is why she comes back and says, hey, I want to clarify this. But and so she gives an article to kind of, go to that. As I said, the U.S. government has been incredibly forward-leaning, has really understood that AI is a national. Look, the government understanding that AI is a national asset, one, is a totally different discussion. But two, this is not even a thing because OpenAI does not equate to the U.S.'s position on AI. OpenAI is not working on an IPO yet. She also clarifies. Now, the reason this becomes really important is because the FINRA and the SEC can be coming after if they say, oh yeah, we're going to be doing an IPO. That is misleading investors if that's not their goal. And their structure doesn't allow them to do this. So this would be a total lie either way anyways. Now, Scam Altman has to, of course, jump into the mix as well, right? He's definitely not going to leave this and sit quietly. And so he has to jump into the mix on this. So he starts off by saying, I would like to clarify a few things. First, the obvious one, we do not have or want government guarantees OpenAI data centers. We believe the government should not pick the losers. What he goes on to say then is, we do think it makes sense that the government pick winners. And it's funny because I'm not the only one. Second, OpenAI is trying to become too big to fail. Our answer is this is an unequivocal no. If we screw up and can't fix it, we should fail. except that that's counter to absolutely everything else he says. And he goes on for this extremely long post. So Kevin jumps in. I asked ChatGPT 5 if you were coping. This was his reply. Yes, this reads as damage control. Altman is walking back the optics of seeking government guarantees by reframing it as support for public infrastructure. He doesn't want public infrastructure. He wants support for infrastructure for his things. Translations. We don't want to bail out. We don't want to bail out for us. We want to bail out for the hard stuff, infrastructure, so we can keep the high margin, easy stuff, software for ourselves. Totally different. We love hyping up AGI, so please support our research. It's coming next week. And that's a little joke that it's always coming. AGI and all of that, and OpenAI does all this because it's totally going to be worth it. All this backing is going to be worth it if we get to AGI. I ain't reading all this. And he says he's happy for him, but I'm like, all right, good for you. Sam Altman just wrote a 1,500-word essay explaining why he absolutely doesn't want government guarantees while outlining a $1.4 trillion moonshot that somehow needs them in spirit, if not on paper. It's performance art at its best. He's basically saying, we don't want bailouts. We just want the government to build the thing, fund the thing, secure the thing, and then maybe let us rent it. I mean, I'm not the only one seeing this as like terrible. I'll save everyone the time here. He says he doesn't want bailouts. We just want the government to pay. So you don't want the government guarantees. You want the government to build the infrastructure to you and sell you the cheap compute. Got it. That's not capitalism. That's state-sponsored monopoly building. So you can see that everyone just takes them apart. Sam Altman and OpenAI is on their downturn. This is when they start to do their death flails. What happens is they've way overcommitted. The bubble here happens to be OpenAI. So the bubble is all around OpenAI. And every time you talk about the bubble, you're finding OpenAI. You've got Anthropic, who's actually producing revenue and getting corporate guarantees faster than OpenAI at this point. You have Google, which has been very slowly behind, the tail player, but now they've just signed a huge deal with Apple that's going to bring a massive amount of data to them, as well as some really good funding for it. You've got them just slowly winning from 20 years worth of data lead. So my prediction here is we're going to see this as a two-man race between Google and Anthropic. Those are the ones that I predict are going to be the ones that are going to start to surge over the coming 18 months in this AI race. So when we talk about a bubble, we talk about a bunch of terrible financing deals that all end up circling back to one particular player, and that's OpenAI. I think we're going to find out that everybody understands that their models are behind. I think everyone's going to work. Everyone's going to start to realize that they have to work to include everything, where somebody like Google can just throw the integration right into every one of their products, which they're doing. And I think we're going to see a continued lead grow by Google and by Anthropic as they pair to take on the world. Because now we're seeing the smart players circling around them. Apple now buddying up with OpenAI, Apple buddying up with Google, right? The big announcement with Apple Siri being used for Gemini. We see Anthropic partnering with Google for their TPU chips. We see more and more of these deals now starting to circle away from OpenAI. And Sam Altman sees this and he's panicked because now he's overcommitted, not by a 10x, not by 100x, by over 1,000 times their revenue. This was never a good deal. And from the beginning, we knew that Sam Altman was not the person to take this company big. He has a history of proven a track record of misleading people. And in this case, now we've got a lot more damage that he's done. And we're going to continue to see that. And I predict we're going to continue to see a user share fall away from OpenAI. So that's kind of my take. It's been a crazy week, lots of different things. So are we in a bubble? Yes. Is it going to pop? Yeah. What does that mean? We don't know yet. We're going to see. Because as I started off saying, look, none of these GPUs are dark. This compute is being used. When OpenAI fails, their compute's going to go to somebody else. It's not going to go dark. And so AI is not going to go away. But you're going to see some of the players fall away. And some of these big deals that we've seen over and over again here are going to get a lot more interesting as we watch this. Now, will this have a financial impact on the market? I think it will. So I think there could be some bumpy times ahead. But I think it's going to be more of a slow deflate of the bubble and less of a pop. That's my predictions. Now, curious to hear what you guys think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Love to have a great discussion. So make sure you leave a comments down below and make sure to like and subscribe. Here at Startup Hack, we'd love to build custom software solutions for companies. So check us out at startuphack.com and we would love to help you if your company is looking for some needs, and particularly around security. We'd love to come in and help you do security reviews and to build custom software solutions for your company. Check out startuphack.com, and we will catch you guys next time.
Hi, I'm Spencer, a fractional CTO. With over a decade of executive leadership and 25 years in software development, I've transformed technology teams and products for businesses just like yours. As your fractional CTO, you get the strategic guidance of a seasoned technology executive without the full-time commitment, perfect for companies ready to leverage cutting-edge technology without expanding headcount. My team at Startup Hack has already built advanced AI agents for small and medium businesses, automating complex workflows and delivering advanced ROI to human workflows. We specialize in creating custom software that connects your systems into a single coherent technology ecosystem. Our development approach focuses on tangible business outcomes. For one client, we developed AI-powered workflows that cut days off of human processes. For another company, by connecting multiple systems, we reduced processing time to increase their ROI by over 75%. We don't just write code, we architect solutions that scale. Whether you need cloud system architecture, data integration between legacy systems, or custom AI agents that automate your unique business processes, my team delivers results that exceed your expectations. Having led technology for a lot of companies and launched 7 successful brands of my own, I bring battle-tested expertise to your business challenges. Our specialty is turning technological complexity into business advantage. So if you're ready to harness the power of AI and custom software to drive your business forward, let's connect. Together, we'll build technology that doesn't just solve today's problems, it positions you for tomorrow's opportunities. Technology leadership, decades of experience, AI powered. Reach out today and we can help you. Check out startuphack.com/Spencer.